What's the good word, Jets fans? Your boy DKB here. Sports Illustrated's Albert Breer was chatting on the Thursday night football game for the Packers versus Lions, and he gave us two of the criteria that it seems like Ben Johnson's going to be looking for, and they were pretty specific. So it lets me think that he does have some direct information surrounding this, but it could eliminate the New York Jets. It's always been a bit of a far shot that the Jets, with everything that's happened over the last 2 years span for us and then some, why would he come here, right? When he has his pick of any job he wants effectively. I don't know, just because I haven't paid a ton of attention to this in years past, but I couldn't tell you a coordinator, former head coach, etc., that has had a 2 to 3 year run like he has, where he's generally been considered the top 3 or top 5 coordinators, period, that would become a first-time head coach. So the two prisms I've kind of seen this argument through is that, one, does Ben Johnson have the right to request the stars, the moon, the sun, etc., and he hasn't actually done anything as a head coach? And two, if you are the hottest candidate and arguably the top guy to become a head coach this year, why not? And to put it in perspective, for as much as we want a former head coach or at least somebody that has some head coach experience, you would think that pushes a lot of those kind of guys to the top of the list, which rightfully so, your Mike Vrabels, your Cliff Kingsburys, but Ben Johnson still consistently seems to be even above those guys. So just to let you know the frame of mind that probably the NFL at large is looking at. And then also, I'm curious before we dive into the points here, last year he returned because they didn't, obviously win a Super Bowl. And if he doesn't absolutely find the perfect situation, I'm wondering if he can essentially make a return trip once again to Detroit. It seems like they're destined for a Super Bowl, honestly. The only thing that's really holding them back is a ton of injuries that are hitting them defensively. But top team in the NFL right now, throw in the bye week, throw in the 2 weeks of preparation. If they can get to the Super Bowl, hopefully they can figure it out, right? But nonetheless, let's get into the two talking points here. So the first one is organizational alignment. He wants an emphasis on making sure the head coach and the general manager are on the same page. So this feels very akin to Mike Vrabel in the interest that we heard about from him for the New York Jets job, where he wants to be able to handpick the general manager himself, right? Same situation. You want to align. You don't want any situations where the GM wants to build from outside in, right? Let's say weapons, let's say secondary, and then everything up into the trenches. Whereas maybe a guy like, I was going to say Vrabel, but maybe Ben Johnson here wants to go from the trenches and then outwards. Obviously, that would cause a huge issue. The Jets are no strangers to this. We've had all of the mismatches in the world that you can think of, guys on different timelines, a GM on an expiring contract, a head coach that's just been signed, vice versa, guys that don't align on talent evaluation when you think of like John Izek and Adam Gase, et cetera, et cetera. So it is a huge, huge relationship, and it makes me think that Ben Johnson believes he's ready for that much power and authority right out of the gate, including the necessary time it's going to take to acclimate to prepping for an entire team and not just one side of the football, right? So there's a lot of unknowns with him, obviously, in terms of can he get the job done as a head coach. Honestly, though, the question is not even the question. His experience with the offensive side of the ball tells you that side should be good, right? And for the New York Jets, obviously offensively, we've been down bad for a long time, right? That's the reason why a lot of people want a offensive-minded head coach, if not somebody that has the former experience, because we can't continue to do this. And we've seen it now for back-to-back years prior to this year where things just really went south. An elite defense can only get you so far if the offense just can't get out of their own way. So with that said, let's get into the second point. This is the one that probably eliminates the Jets here, where it mentions he wants recognition from the organization on what went wrong previously and their willingness to fix it. I kind of get teacher vibes, or like a, school principal, your supervisor at work, somebody, you've done a bad job, they're scolding you, and they want you to come in and show that you understand the root cause of failures and what you'll do in the future to avoid the problem, right? Which isn't necessarily bad in any way. It just sounds funny for a guy coming in looking for the job to do that, right? If I'm thinking of employment opportunities for myself and I go to a big tech company or something, I'm not necessarily imagining, you guys need me more than I need you, for instance, which is what this could come off as. And I want to know, where I fit in, how you guys plan on working around me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But ultimately, I love the question. And for the New York Jets specifically, it is one that Woody Johnson should be thinking hard about, especially if in some world we end up hiring a head coach before we hire a general manager. Woody Johnson's going to have to answer a lot of these questions. I can't imagine, unless a candidate is desperate, nobody is asking this question to the New York Jets. It's one thing to see all the headlines. It's one thing to even tap into some of your connects, with the Mike Vrabels and the Ben Johnson, any of these NFL candidates, right? Everybody talks. It's one thing to see the headlines, one thing to talk to the candidate, to your connections around the league, one thing to even maybe know some people in the building. It's a whole nother thing to hear it directly from the horse's mouth, right? And so there's two layers to this. If the Jets have a GM in place, I would imagine that Woody Johnson still has to speak to this to some degree, but you can kind of, put the wool over the eyes with the GM, smoothing it over with the root cause, right? This is what we're going to do to address these things to avoid these being problems in the future. And ironically enough, many of us believe Woody Johnson is a direct problem here, right? So what does that conversation sound like? Woody Johnson openly admits, I have no plans unless absolutely necessary to butt in on decisions, personnel, et cetera, et cetera. I doubt that'll actually happen. But for everything else that has occurred, there should be an answer to it. And hopefully he's prepared for this, and this wouldn't be something that blindsides him, right? With that said, though, let me know what you guys think here. Is Ben Johnson actually asking for too much? And, give me a percentage. I want Ben Johnson bad, but I say we're probably looking at like less than a 15% chance that we realistically get him. Not only since they're expected to reach the Super Bowl, will we not really be able to talk to these guys until February, potentially, but there's going to be a lot of guys that we're checking in with before then. So can we fall in love with somebody else prior to Ben Johnson even being available? Potentially, but if you want to hold out hope and you want to really shoot for the moon, then you're waiting for Ben Johnson to try to get him in as well. So we'll see. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you again. Peace.